We found a clearing filled with mirrors made of polished stone. At first, I didn't recognize them as mirrors. They rose from the ground in uneven intervals, tall slabs of dark rock set upright like markers. Some leaned slightly, others stood rigid and straight, their edges worn and rounded as if shaped by time rather than tools. In the dim light, they looked dull, flat surfaces that absorbed more than they reflected. It wasn't until Mara stepped closer to one that the surface caught the last of the fading light and gave something back. A faint, distorted version of her face appeared. She stopped immediately. These aren't just stones. Eli moved past me, circling to the left. They're polished, he said, running his hand just short of the surface. Like obsidian, maybe. Obsidian doesn't grow like this, I replied. The clearing itself felt wrong. The forest had been dense right up until we crossed into it, tight clusters of trees, low branches, uneven ground. Then, suddenly, space. A perfect oval of open earth, the floor packed flat and bare, as if nothing had grown there for a long time. No grass, no undergrowth, and no sound. The insects had gone silent the moment we stepped in. Even the wind seemed to stall at the boundary, brushing the outer trees but never quite entering the clearing. Mara leaned closer to the stone in front of her. It's clear, she said quietly. Too clear. I stepped beside her and looked. My reflection stared back at me, but it wasn't quite right. The proportions felt off, subtly stretched. The angle of my shoulders didn't match the way I was standing. I shifted my weight. The reflection followed, but a fraction too late. I stilled. It stilled too. You see that? I asked. Mara nodded without taking her eyes off it. It's lagging. Eli approached another slab a few feet away. This one's fine, he said. No delay. I turned toward him. His reflection turned a second after he did. He frowned. Okay. No, not fine. We began moving between them, slowly at first, testing the surfaces. Some behaved like ordinary mirrors, returning our movements in perfect sync. Others didn't. One showed us standing closer together than we were. Another reflected the clearing differently, trees where there were none, shadows stretching in directions the light didn't support. None of these match, Mara said. They're all different. Different from what? Eli asked. She didn't answer. I stepped toward a taller slab near the center of the clearing. Its surface was darker than the others, the polish deeper, like a pool of still water under stone. When I looked into it, I didn't see myself immediately. For a second, there was only darkness. Then, movement. A figure stepped into view. Me, but not as I was. In the reflection, I stood further into the clearing, closer to the center than I had actually gone. My posture was different too, tenser, shoulders slightly raised, as if bracing. I didn't move. The reflected version of me did. It turned its head, looking past the edge of the frame. At something I couldn't see. A cold pressure built in my chest. Don't, Mara said from behind me. I didn't, I replied. In the stone, my reflection lifted a hand. Not mirroring me, acting on its own. It gestured, subtle, almost cautious. Beckoning. Eli stepped closer. What is that? Not me, I said. The reflection held the gesture for a moment longer, then slowly lowered its hand. Its gaze shifted. Now it was looking directly at me. There was something in its expression I couldn't place, not fear, not warning. Recognition, as if it knew something I didn't. The surface rippled slightly, the image distorting for a brief second before settling again. This time, the reflection didn't show just me. Mara stood behind me, Eli to the side, but neither of them had moved. We all stood in silence, watching the version of ourselves in the stone arranged differently than we were. Step back, Mara said. I did. The reflection didn't. It stayed where it was, closer to the center of the clearing. And then, it turned away, walking deeper into the mirrored space. A space that extended beyond the edges of the real clearing. The surface darkened again, swallowing the image. Eli exhaled slowly. Okay, that's not. A sound interrupted him, soft, subtle, stone against earth. We turned. One of the slabs had shifted. Not fallen, not tilted, just moved. A few inches, maybe. But enough that its angle changed, catching more of the dim light. Did you see that? Mara asked. We had. The clearing seemed to tighten around us. Not physically, but in the way the space felt, like the boundaries had drawn closer without actually moving. The mirrors began to reflect us differently. In one, Mara stood alone. In another, Eli's reflection faced the opposite direction. In a third, I wasn't there at all. Why am I missing? I asked, stepping closer to that slab. The surface showed the clearing, Eli, Mara, the stones, but no sign of me. Maybe it's broken, Eli said. Or selective, Mara replied. The word lingered. Selective. Another sound. More pronounced this time. We turned again. Two of the slabs had shifted closer together, narrowing the space between them. Not by much, but enough to notice. They're moving, Eli said. Toward what? I asked. No one answered. The light in the clearing dimmed further, the last traces of dusk slipping away. The surfaces of the mirrors seemed to hold what little brightness remained, their reflections becoming more vivid as the real world darkened. In one, I saw myself again. Standing alone, but not still. In that reflection, I was walking. Circling slowly, studying the stones, my posture relaxed, curious. Comfortable. I wasn't comfortable. Look at this, I said, gesturing toward it. Mara stepped beside me. In the reflection, she didn't. Instead, her reflected version stood further back, watching. Not me, something else. Eli moved closer too. His reflection remained where it was. None of them aligned anymore. The mirrors weren't just out of sync. They were showing separate moments. Separate arrangements. Separate versions. A low, almost inaudible hum began to rise from the ground. It wasn't a sound exactly, more like a vibration, a subtle resonance that traveled up through the soles of our feet. The slabs shifted again, this time, more than inches. They angled inward, forming a loose circle. Around us, Mara stepped back, turning slowly. They're closing in, or positioning us, Eli said. For what? I asked. The hum deepened, the reflections sharpened. In every slab, the versions of us moved. Not together, not the same, but converging. Each reflection showed us standing closer to the center of the clearing, even as we remained near the edges. They're bringing us in, Mara said. My stomach tightened, or choosing which one of us goes there. The words felt right in a way I didn't want them to. I looked into the nearest mirror again. The version of me inside had reached the center. It stopped, looked up, at something above, something none of us could see from where we stood. Its expression changed, not fear, acceptance. The slabs shifted again, tighter now, the circle narrowing. Eli grabbed Mara's arm. We need to leave. We turned toward the edge of the clearing. But the trees seemed further away. The distance stretched subtly, the boundary receding as we moved toward it. Behind us, the mirrors hummed louder. I glanced back. In every reflection, one version of us stood in the center. Perfectly still, facing upward, waiting, except one. In a single slab near the far side, the center stood. Empty. No figure, no presence, just the clearing, unoccupied. Mara followed my gaze. That one's missing, she said. Eli frowned. Or not chosen. The implication settled heavily. The mirrors weren't showing possibilities. They were narrowing them, selecting. The hum reached a steady, resonant tone. The circle tightened further, and in the reflections, all but one of us had already been placed. Standing at the center, held in position, facing whatever waited above, all except the one that hadn't appeared yet. The one still standing here. Something crawled across the treetops, dragging a sound like chains. At first, it didn't register as anything distinct. Just another part of the forest's shifting voice, branches rubbing, trunks settling, the long, uneven exhale of wind threading through leaves. We had been walking for hours, and the sounds had begun to blur together into something constant and expected. But this didn't fade. It repeated, a slow, deliberate drag followed by a subtle lift. Metal against wood, or something close enough that my mind insisted on the comparison. Chain. Eli stopped ahead of me, his head tilting slightly as he listened. Do you hear that? Mara answered before I could. Yeah. The three of us stood still on the narrow trail, the dim light filtering down in fractured patches through the canopy above. Dusk had deepened into that uncertain hour where shapes lost their edges, and the forest began to feel less like a place and more like a presence. The sound came again, closer this time, a measured pull across the treetops, followed by the faint rattle of links settling against something unseen. I looked up instinctively. The canopy was dense, layers of branches and leaves overlapping in a way that blocked any clear view of the sky. What little light remained caught only the upper edges, leaving the deeper layers in shadow. Nothing moved, not visibly, but the sound passed directly above us, and with it came a subtle shift in the branches, a slow, unnatural bend, as if something heavy had pressed down from above and dragged itself forward. Probably something caught up there, Eli said, though his voice had tightened. Old wire, maybe. Wind's pulling it. The sound stopped. Not gradually, instantly. The silence that followed felt wrong. Too complete. The insects had gone quiet again, their steady rhythm cut off as if something had silenced them deliberately. Even the wind seemed to hesitate, lingering at the edges of the trees without entering. Mara exhaled slowly. That's not wind. No one disagreed. We waited. Seconds stretched, each one marked by the absence of the sound we had already begun to anticipate. Then, it came again. Behind us. The same dragging motion, the same subtle rattle, moving along the canopy in the opposite direction. Eli turned, scanning the trees. Okay, that's not possible. We hadn't seen anything pass us. There had been no break in the branches, no disturbance that suggested movement from one side to the other. And yet the sound was there, retracing a path it couldn't have taken. It's circling, Mara said quietly. I felt it too, not in a way I could point to, but in the way the forest seemed to shift its attention, as if something above us had begun to map our position. Let's keep moving, Eli said. We did. The trail dipped slightly, leading us into a lower section where the ground softened and the air grew cooler. The canopy thickened further, compressing the space above us. The sound followed, not directly overhead now, but offset slightly to the right. Dragging, pausing, dragging again, each movement measured, deliberate, like something pacing us. I kept my eyes forward, resisting the urge to look up again. It felt pointless, the branches would only show what they always showed. Stillness. But the pressure above us grew more defined. Not weight exactly, more like attention. It's matching us, I said. Eli nodded. Yeah. Mara didn't speak, but I could hear the change in her breathing, shorter now, more controlled. The sound shifted again, crossing over us in a slow arc. As it did, the light changed, not dimming, not brightening, but bending slightly, as if the canopy had thickened in a way that blocked more of the sky. Shadows stretched in directions that didn't align with anything we could see. The chain-like rattle softened, becoming less metallic, more organic. Like something that understood the sound it was making and was refining it. We stopped again. The sound continued. This time, it didn't pass. It lingered, directly above us. The branches creaked, not from wind, but from pressure, slow, sustained, as if something had settled across them. Don't move, Mara whispered. I didn't. None of us did. The forest held its breath with us. The dragging sound resumed, but slower now. Closer. Each pull stretched longer, the pause between them more pronounced, as if whatever was moving was adjusting its pace to match our stillness. It wasn't tracking movement anymore. It was tracking us. A faint glint caught my eye through the leaves above. Not a clear shape, just a suggestion. Something reflecting the last traces of light in brief, broken fragments. Like links, interlocking, moving. I blinked, trying to focus, but the image dissolved into shadow. The sound stopped again, and then, it descended, not physically, not in a way that displaced the branches, but in the way the air changed. A slow, downward pressure that made the space around us feel smaller, tighter, as if the forest itself were being drawn inward. Mara's voice was barely audible. It's coming down. Eli shook his head slightly. No, it's reaching. The distinction mattered. I could feel it now, the sense that whatever was above us wasn't just moving through the canopy. It was extending from it. The chain-like sound shifted again, no longer dragging across branches but hanging between them, suspended in the air. A single, soft rattle. Then another, closer to the ground. I forced myself to look up again. The branches overhead seemed thicker, layered in a way that obscured any clear depth. But between them, in the narrow gaps where darkness pooled, something moved. Not a body, not a shape I could define, but a series of linked motions, each one connected to the next, stretching across the canopy in a pattern that felt too structured to be natural. The sound followed those movements precisely. Not a byproduct, a signal. It's choosing, Mara said. The words settled into place with a quiet certainty. Choosing what? Eli asked. She didn't answer. The sound shifted direction again. Not circling now, descending in a slow, deliberate line. Toward us. The air grew colder. The silence deepened. I felt something brush past my shoulder, not physical, not tangible, but enough to register as a change in the space around me. The chain rattled once, directly above my head. Eli stepped back, his breath sharp. It stopped over you. I didn't move, couldn't. The pressure intensified, focusing, narrowing. The sound didn't continue. It hung there, waiting. Then, slowly, it began to pull away. The rattle stretched upward, the unseen weight lifting from the canopy as whatever had reached down withdrew itself. The branches eased, the tension releasing in small, quiet creaks. The sound moved off, retreating into the deeper forest. Dragging, pausing, dragging again. We stood there long after it had faded, the silence returning in uneven fragments as the insects slowly resumed their rhythm. No one spoke, not at first. When we finally started moving again, it was without discussion, our steps quieter, more cautious. I didn't look up, not again, but I could still feel where it had been, the space it had occupied. And as we walked, I realized something that settled deep and heavy in my chest. It hadn't been dragging chains. It had been lowering them. And for a moment, it had found somewhere to place one.